Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chiscool Gaming and today we're doing a full guide and review of the new exclusive hero Drizzt from the D&D collaboration with Dragonheir. In fact, if you've been following along with my channel or checking out the official Dragonheir Facebook page, they recently put out a video showcasing Drizzt and I thought, man, you know what I want to do is show you some footage of him in action and give you a full guide of all the things you would need to know if you want to use this hero. So for the first part of this video, I'm going to have a temporal vortex run going in the background, showcasing some Drizzt damage. I can do around 28 to 30 million damage in this week's buff, which is the attack speed and basic attack damage buff. We're of course going to review his kit and talk about where he performs best. So please do use the timestamps in the description to jump to any part of the video that you are most interested in. And before I do go any further, a big thank you again to the makers of Dragonheir, Silent Gods, for sponsoring today's video. If you have not checked out this game, it is a Western fantasy-themed open-world role-playing game with some sweet D&D mechanics. And Drizzt is a part of an ongoing collaborations with Dungeons & Dragons. This collaboration, as far as I know, has only just begun. We're in phase 1, and next season, hopefully we'll get some more iconic Dungeons & Dragons heroes to collect and bosses to fight. So if you haven't yet downloaded the game, check the link in the description to download Dragonheir Silent Gods on either iOS, Mac, Android, Steam, or the Epic Games Store. It's very cross-platform, so you can play like I do on a mobile device when you're out and about, or on your PC when you're at home. Thank you again to Dragonheir Silent Gods for sponsoring today's video. And as a quick reminder, you can use your Heliolite dice to participate in the Planeswalker summoning for the exclusive hero Drizzt, who we're going to be featuring in today's video. In fact, you can get skins for your D20 and D4 dice that are free to get during this event as long as you complete the collaborated main quest and corresponding activities. You can join D&D Legends in Dragonheir Silent Gods and the 10 million plus players that have downloaded the game, securing one of the top spots in over 10 different regions. Definitely worth checking this game out if you haven't already. Again, links in the description. And let's talk about Drizzt, who is a sweet hero. Now, first we'll talk about how you can unlock him, how he works, what gear you should put on him, the best team compositions. Like I said, timestamps in the description. So how do you obtain Drizzt? Well, he can be unlocked by collecting Hunter's Blades for the Planeswalker summoning event. You need a total of 240 of these Hunter's Blades to unlock him, as well as 240 for each level of inspiration of Drizzt, up to a total of 5 times that you'd want to inspire him. The pity system for this event works a little bit differently than the other summoning events that we're used to. Instead of a 3% chance to pull like you normally get, you only have a 0.5, that is a 0.5% chance, and the only legendary hero you can get is Drizzt. So every 5 pull of summons you do will guarantee you 30 of these Hunter's Blades, meaning you need to do an absolute maximum of 40 dice if you're super unlucky in order to unlock Drizzt. But keep in mind, you can actually get 117 of these Hunter's Blades completely free to play from doing the Urtu boss fight, and you only need about 20 dice to summon Drizzt if you wait until the very last day. So if you do all the free-to-play ways to get your Hunter's Blades, on top of that, you'd need 20 dice, and you can guarantee you're going to summon Drizzt. Now, presumably, there will be other heroes that come in the future that have a similar mechanism of unlocking. So now that we've talked about how you get him, how does he work? Is he actually good? Well, we're going to go over his skills very briefly, and let's first talk about the Captain Aura that increases your allies' critical damage by 30% in all battles. This is actually really good. Probably one of the best auras you can actually get for most PvE activities, especially if you're in a spot where you want to deal a lot of damage in a short amount of time and have multiple sets with close to 100% crit rate. So the more you're stacking crit rate, obviously, the more critical damage is going to be valuable. The way that his passive works is unique, and it works like a summoner in a way. So to summon up, Drizzt summons his Panther at the start of the fight, and they both gain 1 stack of attack percentage and attack speed when hitting the same enemy, capping at a total of 10 stacks. So each stack gives you 4% attack and 4% attack speed. So when this is fully stacked up, you're looking at 40% attack and 40% attack speed. The only condition for this passive to work is they have to be hitting the same enemy. If they swap targets, then they lose their stacks every second. So this works best on single targets like Grave of Rot, Grave of Curse, or Temporal Vortex, where there is only a single boss. The Panther itself deals basic attack damage in an AoE to a target, as well as enemies within 2 tiles of the target, and also does a pounce attack that does more AoE damage, prioritizing the target that Drizzt is attacking. Now, the battle skill, on the other hand, does have some versatility. He swings his blades and deals damage to enemies within a 3x3 range, with a 50% chance of up to 75% chance when fully scrolled to apply Frost for 10 seconds. So every time he casts the battle skill, he'll increase the number of swings he does up to a total of 3 swings. So this is where Drizzt gets a small amount of flexibility, where he actually applies his own Frost effect. You could use him as a pure damage dealer, or he can be half damage dealer and half Frost applier. But we'll talk in a bit more about what to look at with your gear sets and how you'd spec him out. Lastly, we'll talk about Drizzt's ultimate, which, by the way, I am a huge fan of the animation. It looks super cool. Drizzt and his Panther do a total of 6 hits on enemies in a massive area of effect, dealing 110% damage, so 660% total, to all enemies inside that AoE. And when this skill hits an enemy with Frost, it ignores 15% of their defense, which is pretty big. So for each 1% of hit points lost by the target, the damage his ultimate will do goes up by 0.6%, up to a total of 30%, meaning the boss needs to be under 50% in order to get full use of this skill. This is unfortunately where Drizzt falls a little bit short of other Frost DPS, mainly because the last part of his skill doesn't work on bosses with total damage dealt, like in the Vortex, and any of the Chaos or Shadow recast bosses, or even the Urtu boss from the D&D collaboration itself, because they don't have a fixed hit point pool, and therefore never give Drizzt any of that damage bonus, at least as far as I can tell. So with all of that said, what kind of gear do you put on Drizzt? What's best suited for him? In my opinion, and from my testing, if you wanted to build Drizzt to do the most damage, he possibly could do the 3-piece Gambler's set. By far the best set for Drizzt. So the 2-piece bonus, attack speed, works amazing on him, and of course his Panther. Most of his damage comes from his basic attacks rather than his skills. So the Gambler's set bonus is really, really good, dealing more true damage with no internal cooldown. In terms of the artifacts in the epic tier, you should be looking either at the Eyeball of the Giant or the Silver Star Horseshoe. If you do manage to get a legendary artifact, I would highly suggest the Ring of Winter. So this DPS setup will work best on anything that requires damage, whether it's the Fey Meander, the Temporal Vortex, or any dungeon boss. Drizzt will do some serious work. And you also want to look for attack percentage on the chest piece, as well as either crit rate or crit damage gloves, depending on your artifact. That way you can get up to 100% crit, so his basic attacks are guaranteed to crit every single time, as well as you get that crit damage bonus. You could go with a positive rune and an attack negative rune. But if you have other Frost DPS units and wanted to use Drizzt as a Frost applier, in that case, you do a sort of hybrid of sort of a damage and accuracy combination of equipment. So I would still run 3-piece Gamblers, but instead swap out the chest piece and negative runes for accuracy as the main stat. That way you can still have relatively high damage, as well as a way to apply Frost consistently with his battle skill. Now, in this case, you could even opt for the Crown of Unclean Epic artifact or Witch's Remains legendary artifact, and these actually work insanely well on Drizzt, mainly because his ultimate ability has 6 total attacks, and each of these attacks has their own chance to apply the defense debuffs from the artifacts. Pretty sweet. Now, if you went with Drizzt being a full-on damage dealer, you would need a Frost applier with high accuracy, so Drizzt gets the benefits of hitting targets under the Frost effect. The by far best way to do this is with Rava. if you manage to pull him from summons, you should definitely use him to apply Frost for Drizzt. Whether it's for pure PvE or PvP, he's going to work super nicely with any Frost damage dealer. Now, if you get lucky with some legendaries, Losenya would be a better version of Rava for applying Frost. She can actually do some surprisingly mean damage as well, because this season is Frost and Necrosis Affinity. If you do have some points into the 5 Affinity team bonus by now, you would also want to add some Necrosis supports to your lineup, because the Frost really lacks some good healers. You can actually see in the Vortex clip currently playing, I'm using Gulend as my Necrosis support because Tier 4 Vortex applies a defense debuff and Gul is a cleanser. But you could also use Megan, who's a really good healer. Vorash as well is in the sort of top 3 epics in the game, in my opinion. And he has so much in his kit that will fit your lineup no matter what you're doing. Unfortunately, I still haven't unlocked him. So get wrecked, nerds. You know, so you win some, you lose some. But if you have him, you'd want to use him. So if you're looking for a Frost tank, Doll Bomb would be a nice pick. But honestly, I would not be afraid to use someone like Garius, or just put a tankier set on a support for something like Temporal Vortex to be able to tank his second lightning skill. So to wrap things up, should you summon Drizzt? Well, if you are a Frost enjoyer and missing some high DPS or a Frost applier, Drizzt can fill that hole in your lineup. If you're a low spender, I would always only suggest sort of pulling from the main Heliolite banner, whether it's the 80 summons or the 100 summons, depending on sort of how far you are into the season, because this is the only banner where you can pull exclusive legendary heroes. And if you don't know what an exclusive legendary hero is, well, there are only 6 of them in total at the time of this recording. 1 from each element, and they have their very own artifact. So if you manage to get them in duplicate, now you've got some really powerful things that you can be doing. It's very game-changing. And on that note, I actually got insanely lucky recently and pulled Hivitar, a duplicate of him, just a couple days ago. So I'm actually waiting to get another duplicate of another legendary hero, but she is going to be busted with her own artifact. But again, if you're a low spender, if you do have some good Frost units like the ones I mentioned above, or some other legendaries, it'll only cost you that 20 dice toward the end of the event to guaranteed summon him if you wait for the very last day. Now, if you enjoyed this video, do me the honor of throwing a like on here and consider subscribing. This is definitely not the last hero review that I'm going to be doing, so let me know down below in the comments if you want dedicated guides for any other heroes that are in the game. A big thank you again to Dragonheir Silent Gods for sponsoring today's video. I am super hyped for the D&D collaboration that's going on now. You can check that out on Facebook, which I was showing the video from Facebook at the start of this video. Alternatively, check that link in the description to download the game. It is available on iOS, Android, Mac, the Epic Games Store, and also Steam. So a bunch of different places that you can download the game. P.S. Just as a quick reminder, be sure to get your limited time skins for your D20 and D4 and join D&D Legends in Dragonheir Silent Gods. If you're looking for other videos about Dragonheir Silent Gods, specifically, you might really enjoy my artifact or equipment video. Cards will be in the end screen for those in just a second.